Welcome in, everybody. Ready to get a little messy.
Messy is my middle name. Well, not really, but you get the idea.
This is a deep dive, folks, and today we're wading into the deep end of Eva and Gideon's world.
Oh yeah, the Crossfire couple. Everyone's favorite.
And before anyone yells at me, yes, we know it's Captivated by you, but come on.
Crossfire has a ring to it, doesn't it?
Right. Anyway, we're going to dissect their thoughts, their conversations, all that good stuff.
Trying to figure out what makes them tick.
Individually, as a couple, and what their story tells us about love and trust and all the baggage we drag around.
Because, let's be real, we all have baggage.
Oh, yeah. Suitcases full. What's so fascinating here is we get that inside scoop.
That fly-on-the-wall perspective, those raw, unfiltered moments.
The kind that make you go, wait, do all couples fight like this?
Yeah, for real. Makes you wonder if your own relationship is normal.
Speaking of normal, Eva and Gideon. Not exactly the poster children for a peaceful partnership.
Oh, absolutely not. They're passionate, intense.
That's putting it mildly. Fireworks on the surface, but underneath.
A whole lot of friction. That push and pull dynamic, it really makes you question.
Question what?
Well, can you crave love and simultaneously sabotage it? I mean, Gideon especially.
Go on.
Shows classic signs of anxious attachment.
Okay, stop right there. Anxious attachment. Got to break that down for the folks at home.
Sure thing. Basically, picture two people with anxious attachment, right?
Right.
One might get super clingy, needing constant reassurance.
Makes sense.
The other might pull away, pushing their partner away out of fear of getting hurt.
So two opposite reactions, but same root cause. The anxiety.
Exactly. And with Gideon, we see hints of both. He desperately wants Eva's love, but then pushes her away, almost like he doesn't believe he deserves it or that it can last.
Like he's testing her. Setting off these little explosions to see if she'll stick around.
I think that's a pretty good analysis, actually.
Case in point, that whole blow-up with Eva's therapist.
Oh, that was a doozy.
And it wasn't really about the therapist, was it?
It was about control. Gideon needing to assert dominance in a situation where he felt powerless.
Makes sense given his past.
Especially with his mother. Those experiences, they've shaped how he views relationships.
Like a battlefield.
In a way, yeah. Where you constantly have to be on guard, ready to fight for what you want, even, or maybe especially, the people you love.
Which brings us to the other elephant in the room. Or, should I say, ghost from the past.
Brett, Eva's ex.
The one and only. Keeps popping up at the worst times.
And Gideon's reaction, it's a lot more than just jealousy, wouldn't you say?
A lot more. And I think that taps into something we all struggle with.
That elusive thing called emotional closure.
That's it. Even when you know a past relationship is over.
Logically, rationally done.
Over. Those feelings can linger.
Like little embers waiting for the right gust of wind to flare up.
And when you're in a new relationship, those old insecurities, they can rear their ugly heads.
Especially when your partner, like Gideon, is already prone to anxiety and distrust.
So Brett becomes this symbol, right? A stand-in for all of Gideon's fears.
He sees Brett as a walking, talking reminder of Eva's past.
A potential threat to their present, and maybe even their future.
And that's where the external pressures come in and really crank things up a notch.
It's not just Brett. It's the business rivals, the family drama. Like the whole world is conspiring to test their bond.
The Landons, especially, with their vendetta against Gideon.
Right. Adds this whole layer of danger. And it makes you think.
About what?
About how interconnected our lives really are. The lines between our personal and professional lives.
They blur, and those external battles, they can seep into your relationship, even if you're trying hard to keep them separate.
So you've got this pressure cooker of a relationship, internal pressures, external pressures.
And it's in those moments, those high-pressure moments, that a couple's true dynamic reveals itself.
Do they pull together or do they fracture? That is the question.
And the answer, well, we'll have to keep digging to find out.
They're like under constant attack, right? Not just from the outside world.
But from their own past, too.
We've talked anxious attachment, but there's another layer.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Those past traumas, the things that haven't quite healed yet.
And they can really mess things up.
Mess things up big time. And one of the most glaring examples.
Hit me with it.
That whole revelation about Eva's former therapist.
Nathan. Don't even remind me.
It's not just that he was a bad therapist, though, right?
Late.
I mean, he assaulted Gideon.
A complete violation. And then to make matters even worse.
What's that?
Gideon's mother didn't believe him.
Oof. Talk about a double whammy of trauma.
First, the assault itself, and then having that pain dismissed by his own mother.
Talk about reinforcing the idea that the world isn't safe, that people you should rely on will let you down.
And that plays out so clearly in how he treats Eva.
In so many ways. How does that saying go? Hurt people, hurt people.
Ugh, it's so true. Like after she kisses Brett, Gideon's control issues, they go through the roof.
He's almost punishing her for something she hasn't even done.
Projecting his past hurts onto their present, right?
Exactly. Anticipating that betrayal. Makes you wonder, though.
What do you mean?
Does a part of him, maybe deep down, actually want her to be different?
Whoa! That's a good question.
Because if she truly is different, if she doesn't betray him, then his whole belief system...
About relationships, about women?
It all crumbles, and that can be terrifying.
For sure. It's easier to stick with the familiar...
Even if it's painful, right?
Than to embrace the unknown.
And risk getting hurt even more.
And then, of course, there's that whole mess with the leaked sex tape.
Yeah, a brutal reminder of how the past can come back to bite you.
But more than the actual plot, think about what it symbolizes. These hidden wounds both of them carry.
Those past experiences that have shaped how they see themselves, their worth.
It's like the tape is a weapon, used to exploit their deepest fears.
And think about how they react to each other in the aftermath.
They lash out, blame each other.
They retreat into themselves. It's like those past traumas become fault lines.
And any pressure, any stress triggers an earthquake.
It's almost as if they're fighting two battles. One against the outside world.
And the other within themselves.
And honestly, that internal battle, the one against self-sabotage...
That one's often the hardest one to win.
Isn't it, though?
And yet, even with all the chaos, they keep choosing each other.
It's really quite remarkable.
They go to therapy, they work on communicating.
It's like they recognize that love needs more than just passion.
It needs commitment, vulnerability, a willingness to face those inner demons together.
Them being willing to go to therapy speaks volumes. It shows a level of maturity.
And self-awareness.
Like you don't always see in couples like them, especially at that stage. Acknowledging they need help.
That they can't do it alone. And shout out to Dr. Peterson.
Oh, he's fantastic. Doesn't sugarcoat a thing.
When he said they both need individual therapy. Love that.
Like he was saying, hey, you can't fix a relationship if you haven't dealt with your own baggage first.
Such a crucial point. Individual growth is essential for a healthy relationship. It's not about becoming perfect.
It's about understanding yourself, knowing your triggers.
Your patterns. So you can show up as the best version of yourself for your partner.
And for yourself too, of course.
You know, I've actually seen something similar with a friend of mine.
Really?
Her partner had this intense need for control, stemmed from childhood trauma.
I see.
Took years of therapy, both individual and couples, but they broke through those patterns eventually.
It's a reminder that healing takes time. There's no magic wand.
No quick fix.
It's about showing up, doing the work, believing that change is possible.
It's interesting you mentioned that because we see the same struggle reflected in Gideon's nightmares.
Oh, absolutely. Those nightmares, they're not just random, are they?
They're like a window into his subconscious.
All that unresolved trauma, the fear that keeps him trapped in those cycles of self-sabotage.
But they've gotten better since meeting Eva, right?
They have. Which makes me think she represents a kind of safe haven for him.
She's offering him a different reality, where love doesn't have to equal pain.
But even with that, we still see him pushing her away. It's almost like...
He's afraid to believe in that possibility.
Exactly. He craves her love, but then sabotages it.
Because deep down, it feels too good to be true.
It's that classic push and pull we talked about earlier, the inner battle between hope and fear. And that's what makes their story so relatable, I think.
I agree. Because haven't we all, at some point, built walls around our hearts?
To protect ourselves from getting hurt.
It's human nature. We want love, but we're terrified of it at the same time.
And sometimes that fear can be even stronger than the desire itself.
It's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not just about Eva and Gideon.
Right, we've got those parallel narratives running alongside them.
It's like we're zooming out, getting a wider view of the whole relationship landscape. If Eva and Gideon are like the main event,
The headliners.
Carrie and his story, that's a whole different vibe.
Totally different genre.
Right. It makes you think, is there even a right way to do relationships?
Especially when you see how much Carrie struggles with commitment, especially with Tat and the whole pregnancy thing.
And Trey, don't forget Trey.
Oh yeah, Trey's in the mix too, which honestly just makes things more interesting.
At the beginning, Carrie's all about that playboy life.
No strings attached, right?
But then as things with Kat get serious, you see him changing.
Wrestling with responsibility and maybe even
What?
a longing for something more, deeper. Maybe it's just part of growing up. Who knows?
Maybe. But it definitely highlights how important it is to communicate.
Oh, 100%. Not just with your partner.
With yourself too, right?
Exactly. Figuring out what you really want deep down.
And through it all, Carrie's friendship with Eva. It's like a rock.
He can be totally vulnerable with her.
No judgment. It reminds you that those friendships, just as crucial as romantic relationships.
It's funny, right? Eva and Gideon are battling their pasts.
Carrie's over here struggling with the idea of commitment altogether.
But aren't they all searching for that same thing?
Connection. Real connection.
Yeah, they're just taking different paths to get there.
Speaking of paths, let's talk about the roadblock that is Gideon's family, specifically his mother.
Oof. Yeah. Talk about a tense dynamic.
You can cut the tension with a knife.
It's more than just personality clashing, though, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. This is about power.
Control. A mother trying to hold on to her son and not being very subtle about it.
Makes you realize that sometimes the biggest threats to a relationship.
They come from the people closest to us. And honestly, I think a lot of people can relate to that.
I know I can. But remember that scene at the wedding when Gideon finally stands up to his mother?
Oh, powerful stuff. Chills, man.
Defending Eva, their love.
Makes you wonder if it actually changed anything, though.
Because, his mother's influence is still there.
Lurking beneath the surface, a battle that could go on for years.
It's like a parallel to the internal battles Gideon's fighting, right?
Absolutely. He needs to break free from his mother's control.
Just like he needs to break free from those self-sabotaging patterns.
Two sides of the same coin, really.
So we have all these characters, these different relationship styles.
It's like a tapestry.
With Eva and Gideon at the center.
And it makes you think, what does it all mean for the listener? What can we take away from this?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
And listen, Captivated by You doesn't give you easy answers. It's not that kind of story.
Which I actually kind of appreciate.
Me too. Because relationships in real life, they're messy, complicated.
Constantly evolving, no instruction manual. And isn't that kind of freeing in a way?
It is, because it means you get to write your own rules, figure out what works for you and your partner.
It's about understanding yourself, communicating your needs, and being willing to put in the work.
Day after day, right.
Love isn't a finish line.
It's a journey, a sometimes bumpy, chaotic, beautiful journey.
With two imperfect people trying to build something real, something that lasts.
And like you said before, it's also about having a good support system.
Friends will be there for you.
Don't be afraid to lean on them. Talk things out. And hey, if you need professional help.
There's no shame in therapy. It can give you the tools to navigate the tough stuff.
At the end of the day, I think the biggest question this deep dive raises is,
Hit me.
in a world obsessed with grand gestures, is the true measure of love actually found in the small things?
The everyday moments.
The commitment, the forgiveness.
Choosing each other, even when it's hard.
Flaws and all. That's real love, isn't it?
That's a beautiful thought. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder your own relationships, your own journeys.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Captivated by You. It's been a wild ride.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.